What's up, everybody? I'm back again. Like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Talk to you a little bit more about the history of St. John, New Brunswick, and to interject a big chunk of my own theory into what I think happened here a long time ago when they were colonizing this place. Yeah, let's get into it. So, one of my subscribers left me a comment and told me to go and check out Steely Dan's The Royal Scam. So, today I'm going to be talking a lot about this song, a little bit more about breaking down the rest of history. So, let's start off with the album, The Royal Scam. So, the album was the fifth studio album from Steely Dan, originally on ABC Records in 1976. And the album peaked at 15 on the chart. So you can read all this if you want to get into it. I just want to touch on some notes about it. So, in common with other Steely Dan albums, The Royal Scam is littered with cryptic allusions to people and events, both real and fictional. So it touches on some pretty interesting little titles here. So we got like Kid Charlemagne, which is a pretty interesting little song, and the Caves of Altamira, which is a little pretty interesting thing about the Caves of Altamira being some place in Spain where they have these really old cave paintings. I didn't really get too much into all of these, the rest of the album, but I'm going to talk to you pretty much about the Royal Scam song. This is the album cover to Steely Dan's The Royal Scam, which looks like it's a dude sitting on like bench or a grate or something outside, and behind him there's these skyscrapers that go up behind him, and they're all morphing into animals. And yeah, they're going up in the beast system. The album cover shows a man in a suit sleeping on a radiator and apparently dreaming of skyscraper beast hybrids. The cover was created from a painting and a photograph and was originally created for Van Morrison's unreleased 1975 album, Mechanical Bliss, the concept being a satire of the American dream. Here we got the lyrics to the Royal Scam song. I'm just going to give my opinion on it. This has no way, shape, or form has to do with anybody else, just taking a stab at some of the things that I've learned over the years, and I'm putting them all together, and this song just kind of, it may be written about something completely different, but for whatever reason, it jives almost exactly with my theories on what actually happened to this world in the early times. With that being said, let's get into it. The song is actually written in like a 3-line system, so it's like these first 3 lines and those first 3 lines and those next 3 lines. And yeah, I'm going to try and break it down like that. It says here, and they wandered in from the city of St. John without a dime. Here in St. John, we have Partridge Island. If you want to read more about it, I did a little bit of history about it. I'm going to go over to it when we make a whole video about it. But Partridge Island, first established as a quarantine station and pest house in 1785 by the St. John Royal Charter. They have been shipping people here and using this as a quarantine station for almost 250 years now. 250 years they've been sending people here. What I'm thinking is that they were sending people here and then distributing them throughout the Americas. Who, you might ask? Well, that dives us a little bit into the breakdown of history that we're going to do in a few minutes. So let's bounce back to this song. As I think of the St. John, you could possibly say that it was St. John's, Newfoundland too, because they shipped a lot of people through there, but I believe they're talking about St. John. I'm going to take it as they read it here. So the next line is, wearing coats that shined both red and green colors from their sunny island. I believe that these people are the orphan children, and they've been coming for a lot longer than what we think. That these orphan children weren't just coming from Ireland and the British Isles. I believe that they were distributing them out, getting everybody out of Africa. So we know how lush and green Africa is, but Africa has also a lot of red earth all over the place. So I think that these people left Africa, their sunny land of green and red, of the red earth of Africa. But you're going to tell me, but all the kids in the orphan trains are all white kids. That's our next kicker. So I found this video here. You guys can check it out. He even says in the video that white people came from Africa. He goes on and talks a lot about how there's all these great castles and everything, which there are, and I believe that those were built all by the indigenous people. It's a known thing that white people of the world like to put themselves on top. They like to be on top of the world. In this map here, we're looking at Africa being on top of the world. This is Italy here, or Rome, and this is the British Isles all the way down here, down the Mediterranean, India, and all that stuff's over here. Asia's all that. This is Africa, right? So he goes on to show us that there's all these amazing castles in and about Africa, Ethiopia, right? There's all these huge, huge castles that you really don't see anymore. There are some pretty cool looking castles that are still there, the quote-unquote Tartarian style, but for the most part, they've all been taken down. So he goes through and talks about these maps. He finds this map, which I just so happen to have an actual copy of, and that's over on this site here, Gallica. This is the map here. If you look real closely, you can see that a whole coastline are all written in here with the names of all the places that are on the coast. This is Italy, or Rome here, the British Isles up here again. Iberian Peninsula is all there. And then you have Africa, the top of Africa here goes all the way across like that, or whatever. Here you have castles all over the place. And then you have where it should be melanated people, you have white queens with a scepter. Arabia. Is that what you think of Arabian people? So yeah, and this guy's clearly a white guy with a staff in Africa as a king. Looks like these guys are, the workmen. This here's the kingdom of Orgenia. So I wonder if Orgenia is maybe the origin of these people? I don't know. It's really interesting stuff, right? So here's... Back then they were even calling it Africa, but it was 2 F's. Yeah, white people were in Africa. So we're back into the video. Here's another map. So this map here is of Africa. That kind of goes around that way. And you're looking at here where I'm assuming this would probably be like the Great Rift. The Great Rift Valley or whatever it is. I'm assuming that's probably that area. But you have all of these kind of different looking people. They're all like, some of them are mixed with other animals, some of them don't have heads or something. I'm not quite sure what's going on with that guy, right? But there's like these kind of like monsters or whatever almost. We were told that in early times that man was genetically modified. Were we genetically modified in the Great Rift Valley in Africa? And that's where the white people spread out and destroyed all this stuff. If you keep going with the next map, so you have this next map here, right? So this is supposed to be Africa again. This is the east. Looks like paradise. This is where Eden, which is completely different than what we were told. Yeah, so if you look here, you got this guy right here. There's Egypt there, and Rome's down here. This is Jerusalem, or what they're calling Jerusalem. So this would definitely be Africa all the way down here. They have these people down here, people who have been genetically modified, changed in some way, are all down here, all on the outskirts of Africa. I'm assuming near the Great Rift Valley. So in Africa was where the fallen angels came down and laid with man, if you want to take it from a biblical aspect. This is where, we get the Anglo-Saxons, the people who are angelic. They were mixed here. Some of them turned, white, and some of them turned into other kind of giants and weird-looking beasts and stuff. So I wonder now, with all these are all the ruins and castles that you see in Africa, right? Some are really nice, some are old school looking, but they have these guys like this. Could they have been these giant castles that we have gone and destroyed because they don't want us to know that there was the civilization was all over, and that they just went through and just destroyed all the people in Africa to create this whole story that the melanated people and the indigenous people of the world are all dumb, so they take away these castles from them? I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of old maps show non-melanated people coming out of Africa. If you want to get into that, do your research into it. There's a lot of people showing, but it's just interesting that we have all these crazy ruins there. It's like they took apart could have been a whole castle building structure that old world, quote unquote, Tartarian Antiquitech. Did they do all this just to replace the what happened in the past with their narrative of history that they want to give us? Back here, looking at these lyrics again. Like I said before, I believe that this song has a lot to do with the distribution of the white orphan children from Africa coming to the Americas. So we'll get into the next line here. From their boats of iron, they look upon the promised land where surely life was sweet. I believe that the Americas is the promised land. I won't get really into it on this video because it's a whole huge topic. I believe that the Americas were the promised land of the Bible, and that when they got off of their boats of iron, or from their boats of iron, they would look to see that life was truly sweet. Because before colonization of the Americas, life was completely different than what it was. It was, everybody was actually a lot more peaceful. That's why Christopher Columbus was accepted when he first came here. Everybody was cool and they were all just kind of rocking with it. They would have their own little squabbles here and there, and tribes would fight each other, but there was no real wars or anything. But as soon as they brought their armies and took it all over, they destroyed all that and brought all the war and violence and crime and all the evil and money and all that here, and just ruined life. But I get off a little off topic there. They looked from their boats and saw that life was truly sweet. On the rising tide, so St. John has some of the highest tides in the world, which is another reason why I believe it's St. John, New Brunswick. To New York City did they ride into the street. So they arrived from along the high tide, or the rising tide. Some of our ports, the Bay of Fundy, you can only use at high tide. Yeah, they went to New York City and basically spread throughout the Americas, right? That's what you basically hear, a new orphan train coming from New York City into the Midwest or whatever. Yeah, this is where they actually distributed a lot of these people. And then it says, see the glory of the royal scam. Then we're going to get into the next verse here. They are hounded down to the bottom of a bad town amid the ruins. They're forced, these children were forced, and as they grew older as well, and it wasn't just when they were children, but they were forced to the bottom of all these bad towns that they burnt down and that they destroyed throughout all of North America. Like every city has a great fire at some point and the whole thing burns down and it has to all get rebuilt. Well, who does the rebuilding? Well, the children that came with no education, no money, turn them into tradesmen, and they build back all of these ruins, all these cities. So I believe that they're saying, these kids get hounded or forced down into the bottom of these towns to dig them out of mud or to rebuild from the foundation up all of these towns in North America, just the way I see it. So the next line is a pretty huge one, where they learn to fear an angry race of fallen kings, their dark companions. Okay? So these kids come to the promised land, where life was surely sweet, thinking, wow, life's so good over here. But they get pushed, hounded down to the bottom of these bad towns that they burned out and destroyed to get rid of the dark race, the dark kings that lived here before. They came here, the dark raced people wanted to be friends, they wanted to be companions, but they were taught to fear them and hate them. They're savages. Is this not what we're told? Go out into the wilderness and they'll just come up right up and scalp you and take your women and children and kill them and everything, right? That leads me into this. Fair use, all up in your caboose. We're just going to watch quickly some pictures. Let's see, chapter 2. We're just going to see some pictures of some indigenous people right here. Some American indigenous people. Please go and like and subscribe. This guy, he's doing his thing, showing us some truth here, gathering up some old school pictures of the copper colored people of America. Look at that. These people were always here. They weren't brought here on no slave ship or nothing. These people were always here. This is the old world, the promised land. He does have some people at the rest of the video talking about it. So I just quickly wanted to show you here the Webster's Dictionary of 1828. I think it's the first or one of the first dictionaries ever printed by Webster. So this is the term American, the noun, a native of America, originally applied to the aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of European born in America. See how they switched it up now? The aboriginals or copper-colored races, dark-skinned people, very, very melanated people that look like this, right? Which one matches up, right? The indigenous people of North America were very melanated. Not what you see today. Not the people that you see today. So there's lots of information out there on melanated indigenous people of America being enslaved and losing pretty much all their history. If you want to do your research into that, there's tons of videos out there and tons of people doing that. If you want, you can leave a comment. I could possibly do a video on that as well. So anyways, here's a video. I found this crazy little article. It just came out not that long ago, a couple weeks ago. So Willie O'Ree is famous, the first melanated hockey player in the NHL. He's a big deal. He's from Fredericton. If you keep reading down the article, you can read it. It'll be linked up. So it says here, about 3,300, that's a nice number there, right? About 3,300 black loyalists arrived in St. John in the mid-1780s after the American Revolutionary War. They had been promised land grants in exchange for their service in the British Army. When that did not materialize, many left. Founder of Sierra Leone, a leader among the black loyalists, Thomas Peters, petitioned colonial officials for several years on behalf of his people before joining forces with a British company working to establish a colony of free blacks in Africa. So there wasn't any free blacks in Africa before that? Where were all the melanated people that were supposed to be there? According to the mainstream story, there's supposed to be tons of free black people in Africa, but not here. Peters helped recruit 17 boatloads of people who migrated from the Maritimes to Africa in 1792. He is considered one of the founders of the nation of Sierra Leone. So how old, how much history is there of Sierra Leone? If it only goes back to 1792, but we're supposed to be there for how long? But it sounds like they're taking a whole crap load of them over there that way to Africa, not coming from Africa to the Americas for slavery. They're going the opposite direction. This is how they populated Africa with the melanated people. They took them that way, not coming back this way. So I found this old map on Gallica, and it's of the St. John River, and it looks pretty mapped out. It's pretty good, right? We look down here. We still got Partridge Island kicking it, still there. Partridge Island has always been called Partridge Island, as far back as you can go. And I have all these Negro settlements, is what they're calling them here, on this little area here, right? And as far as the song goes, guess what county that's in? That would be in Kings County, like the angry race of fallen kings. Pretty interesting though, that they put the Negro settlements, or were the Negro settlements already there? This is if you look here, this is a map. It says map the Great River St. John and waters. First ever published from the Bay of Fundy up to St. Anne's or Frederick's Town, which is now, I guess, Fredericton. obviously, being little known by white people until 1783, settled by the American Loyalists, when part of Nova Scotia, now called New Brunswick, from an actual survey made in the years 1784, 85, 86, and 87 by Robert Campbell, surveyor, captain of the 40th Company of the St. John Loyalists. This area is little known to the white people up until 1783. This map was made in 4 years. They surveyed the whole river all the way up to Fredericton and all the little tributaries that lead into it. They surveyed that whole thing in 4 years. But look at this place. Look how built up this already is. Look how built up it is. Look at all the names in here. All along the rivers, there's all these towns. Kingston, right? Kingstown. The melanated people probably living up all of this place. This whole province here that you're looking at, right? This whole riverway right here. Who settled this? So that leads me to the next point. You jump over here to the St. John, New Brunswick Wikipedia page, just for reference. They tell you French loyalist Samuel de Champlain landed in St. John Harbor on June 24th, 1604, on the feast of John the Baptist Day. From 1604 to 1783. What color do you think the people were that were living here? We're told this is where the Acadians were, right? French village. So all these people must have been French, right? So then what if I showed you one of the explorers, one of the great explorers that accompanied Samuel de Champlain, and this would be his picture that they gave us, that they made into a Canadian stamp to commemorate him. No wonder they were all welcomed the first time they came over here, right? Makes you wonder what color all these people were that came over here, right? They have old pictures of them. So we're going to go to see his Wikipedia page because we're just going to do a quick little rundown of them. Matthew de Costa, sometimes de Acosta, is the first recorded free black person in Canada. Really? He was a member of the exploring party of Pierre Dubois. So here's a little history on him. There is little documentation about Da Costa of at least partial African ancestry. He is known to have been a free man favored by explorers for his multilingual talents. Numerous mixed race African Portuguese persons were part of the Atlantic Creole generation. So now we're talking Creole. Who speaks Creole? Is that not the Cajun and the Acadians? Melanated people were speaking Creole. Often working as sailors or interpreters, his portfolio of languages is thought to have included Dutch, English, French, Portuguese, Mi'kmaq, Pigden Basque, and dialects many Aboriginals used for trading purposes. So he knew all the Indigenous melanated languages, as we're going to see we're going to see later on in this same video. That's just food for thought that this gentleman was melanated, and it says here in this map that this whole area was little known for 180 years to the white man. So then what is all this? Who's developing all this here, right? It's not the white man that's developing all that, right? We just literally came in and just snatched it all up. Took it all, stole it all. Indian house, right there. So this gentleman, Thomas Peters, his son, John Peters, remained in the Maritimes, where his descendants mingled with Acadians and Indigenous people. So we know the Indigenous people are dark. The Acadians are the descendants of the French settlers and sometimes Indigenous people of parts of Acadia. These people were forced out for a reason. Probably because they were melanated. That's why, when you look at this article here, a surprising history, because it's hidden. Nobody knows about this because they buried it. Here it is now. So these are the French settlers. The Acadians were kicked out of the region by the British, and they went down. You can look it up, but there's a lot of people saying that the Cajuns were dark-skinned people too when they first showed up there. So let's see we know who the Indigenous people are. So let's see who the French are, right? Who's the French? Is that the French? A French court rules that native white French do not exist. So that's what French people look like. You can read this, 2010. Basically, the two people got together, wrote a book and a CD, and basically the Christian identity people started crying about all this stuff. For 5 years, the judge ruled that white people are not considered native to France. They couldn't be found guilty. And if you read this whole thing, you can read this if you want, I'll link it in the description, but I found that, this part was pretty interesting too. While American Indians, Australian Aborigines, and New Zealand Maori are considered native to their respective places, certain high-ranking officials do not consider white people native to Europe, or, in fact, anywhere on the planet. Oh, really? That's pretty crazy, right? So, because natives are entitled to special privileges under Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People. It's pretty crazy how much they messed everything up. Yeah, and we got another video here of another gentleman that is doing his thing to spread some truth around. This video is going to show you some Aboriginals of Europe. If you better keep the pause button quick, because there's a lot of little writing on the bottom here that you might want to read. But there's people of Europe. Hopefully I don't get caught for a copyright infringement. Like and subscribe this guy too. Oh, dark-skinned British pics. Oh, there you go. The Basques in Spain and France, the little dark Welshmen, the Scottish and black Celts to the west of the Shannon River in Ireland, as well as the same kind of men in Brittany and Aquitaine in France, and the Guanches of Canary Islands and the Berbers of Africa are all probably the remnants of the race. All those people were dark-skinned at one point. That guy's blue-black. So this guy is Mirian, was the first Christian king of Iberia, converted through the ministry of Nino, a Cappadocian female missionary. So that guy is in the cathedral in Georgia. He's the first Christian king in Iberia. This is where it all went wrong. They took on Christianity and now they're white. You'll see this happen all the time. 1136 there. Archduchess of Austria. Is that what you think of Austrian people? Holy Roman Empire, Maria of Austria. Elizabeth of Bohemia, daughter of King James the Sixth of Scotland and one of England and Ireland. Mother Anne of Denmark, the wife of Frederick V. Oh, there's Saint Anne of Denmark. So King James of Scotland, right? He was melanated, and he's here accepting Christ with the ball and scepter, and we all know what happened to him. Now everyone is white. Red hair with freckles. So what are freckles? Spots of melanation, right? Trying to get through. You stand out in the sun too long, and it's going to try and come out. Oh, a Dutch boy. Oh, look at that. Oh, more Dutch. So that's what the Dutch look like. Black Pete, Swarty Pete. Oh, there's another melanated person with the ball and scepter. Accepts Christ, gets overthrown, now is white. Oh. The king wears the cross of the Order of Santiago, which was founded in the 12th century and owes its name to the national patron of Galicia and Spain, Santiago, Saint James the Greater, under whose banner the Christian began. So there you go. It's that dude right there is king, and he is very, very dark skinned. Oh, there you go. More statue. Or a statue trying to chop off the nose. But you can't get rid of the skin. There you go, Galicia. More Dutch. Gary Coleman. Oh, jeez. More Dutch. Oh, that guy's copping a feel there, isn't he? Oh. Is this what you thought Dutch were? Swarty Pete? The Moorish? The Moorish people? The Moors? The Moorish? Oh, hitting you fast now. Some shields. Greeks. Etruscans. Arabs. Arab female. Or Arab woman. Pope. Shields of Europe? Caucasian? Is that what a Caucasian is? Shields of Germany? Princess of Denmark? Duchess of Persia? Moorish statue that's still up in the square in Denmark today? Look at his shield, rocking the shield of a melanated man. Is that guy English or what? Statue. More statues. Sure have a lot of melanated statues, and especially ones with froze. That one's got dreads. He's got the Rasta colors. It's craziness. He's Holy Roman Empire. Right? That dude's a saint. You know, Germany. Oh, more German shields. Gentleman's family stayed in the Maritimes, intermingled with the indigenous people, Acadians, right? He intermingled with these people, and he now looks like this guy. See, he does have some black features to him, but for the most part, dude is now white. So from 1792, when this guy left, he was This guy is black. So it took what? 200 years, 230 years, and this guy is now, his family is now white. So how easily can you breed out dark-skinned people? You know, how easy can you breed these people out? Well, note here, New Brunswick was the first area in the British North America to ban slavery. During the War of 1812, there was 300 refugees came up. Just a bunch of other stuff that's alright here, but doesn't really apply to what we're saying. Alright, let's now get back to the song. Sorry about that. We got a little diverted there with having to do a little brief history of the North American Indigenous people and how they were kings and how the people that they brought here were just taught to fear them. It's like they were taught to fear an angry race. What was the angry race? Their dark companion? How can a companion be angry? Maybe because you stole their land? Alright, so we'll get into the next one. While the memory of their southern sky was clouded by the savage winter. So that's basically telling you that they came from a very nice and sunny, warm place, and now they are hit with the savage North American winter. These guys have to deal with the memory of the southern sky. They're dealing with these harsh winters. Every patron saint hung on the wall shared the room with 20 sinners. So now they instill the saint. So I'm not quite too certain exactly the significance of the 20 sinners. The patron saints hanging on the wall is a reference to the church and how they basically took over all the dark-skinned people. They basically have gone all over the world, not just in North America, but they've gone into every place that indigenous melanated people are, taken their children into quote-unquote schooling or indoctrination camps, and basically told them how to live and what they believe in. And some of them, they instilled their Christian beliefs and tried to breed them into society. And I believe that they've also taken some of them and sent them back out into the wilderness and given them a false history of themselves. And now they don't know who's built any of the great stuff all around. Like, we don't know who's built any of the mounds here, or a lot of the pyramids, or any of those great feats of engineering that they've done here, or anywhere in the world for that matter in the ancient times. We don't know how they did it or who did it for the most part, but if you look around the whole world, it's all the same, or a lot of it's pretty much the same. It's all the same buildings, it's all the same structures, it's all the same general style. So it's leading a lot of people down the road of thinking that it's Tartarians, but it could just be the indigenous people were just rocking with the earth at the time and used the energy of the earth. But yeah, basically, they just instilled the patron saints in their churches and told us to believe in all that stuff and not know that within ourselves is the creator and a wavelength to the creator. You have to know that within you is a connection to the Most High, the creator of everything. And there's no one in between you. There's no saints. There's no intermediary Jesus or whoever you want to put in there that's going to take you to the Most High. When the day comes, the Most High is judging you. He's not judging you based on whatever someone else says about you. It's what you've done in your life. There you go. That's a little bit of that. Now you see the glory of the royal scam. So now we're talking about the controller. So by the blackened wall, he does it all. He thinks he's died and gone to heaven. Either this wall was built by black people and they called it a blackened wall, or they destroyed every city with fire before they rebuilt it. So could this be a wall that's been blackened by soot? And now that he's destroyed it all and he has it all, he thinks he's died and gone to heaven. But really, he's gone to heaven on earth, which is the promised land. So this guy, he thinks that he's gotten it all and he's in control of everything and that he's now in heaven. Now the tale is told by the old man back home. He reads the letter. This old man, one of the controllers, he gets his letter and he tells the tale, his story, or our history, how they want us to believe everything went down, is what this guy's reading from his letter. How they are paid in gold just to babble in the back room all night and waste their time. What I think is that the rulers, the controllers, are being paid in gold. They're the ones getting all the gold that we work hard for, that we mine and everything. The rich ones are getting most of it, but they get paid all their gold just to hang out and babble in the back room all night and waste everybody's time. This is their politicians. This is what they do. They get paid and they just babble in back rooms. This is how they work. We work for them. They do nothing. They babble in the back rooms. They wandered in from the city of St. John without a dime. See the glory of the royal scam. So this was a little bit lengthy of a video about just a song, but I think they were trying to say something, you know? I think they knew something, or the writer knew something, or something was trying to be told through these guys in writing this song, because it hits on a lot of different levels on the research that I've been doing and that I've found out. So you guys can tell me what you think. Just a little add-on here. One of my buddies sent me the old fort we went to in November last year, November 2018, and then we ran across to the Partridge Island and checked that out. We're going to go do another little mission like that. This is what they called the ruins of Fort Dufferin. Okay, so there was a fort up here. Big old fort. Ooh, Fort Dufferin Rock. So this was kind of how the fort was aligned. This is the breakwater to Partridge Island. So this was the old part of the old fort. I'm assuming it was a little bit bigger. I'll have to get in some pictures and find some pictures of old Fort Dufferin. So now we just got these cool looking rock things, and so we got this cool old picture, right? Just awesome, right? I just love these old drawings of all these old forts. This is Fort Dufferin, right? There's this picture here. So if you come down here, the fort was originally called the Negro Point Battery, a racist name that still survives the contemporary maps in so-called Negro Point Breakwater, alright, to Partridge Island. So they changed the name to Fort Dufferin in 1873. So this whole area was more or less run by melanated people. We'll jump over here to Google Maps. This is Partridge Island here. This is St. John up here. This is the west side. If you go in, this is Negro Point Breakwater. This is Negro Point right here. This is where the battery is. Drop this guy on. So we have the fort. Now these things are like right here. Those turret things. And see they have more turrets up here. Right, the gun turrets. So it was like all along this point here was the Negro Point Battery, what they called. It was all this area. Now called, after British rule, it was called Fort Dufferin. Just more stuff to say that, you know, the melanated people have been here forever. Have been a lot longer than us. The white folk. We just took everything from them. Crazy. So just as a little bonus here, I'm just gonna, while I was researching all this, I kind of found this French and Indian War. So I clicked on it. I opened up a tab. This war was the French and Indian War in North America. The United States used the term. The title of the French-Indian War in the singular is used in the United States specifically for the warfare of 1754 to 1763. The North American colonial counterpart to the 7-Year War in Europe. The French-Indian Wars were preceded by the Beaver Wars. That's when they trained beavers to fight each other. No, I'm joking. That's not what happened that day, I'm pretty certain. So, I clicked on the 7-Year War. So what does the 7-Year War tell us? The 7-Year War is pretty interesting. I've never even heard about this. The 7-Year War was a global conflict fought between 1756 and 1763. It involved every European great power at the time and spanned 5 continents, affected Europe, the Americas, West Africa, India, and the Philippines. The conflict split Europe into 2 coalitions, led by the Kingdom of Great Britain, including the Kingdom of Persia, and the Kingdom of Portugal, the Electorate of Brunswick and Lunenburg, and other small German states on one side, and the Kingdom of France including the Australian-led Holy Roman Empire, the Russian Empire until 1763, the Kingdom of Spain, and the Swedish Empire on the other. Meanwhile, in India, the original polities within the increasingly fragmented Mughal Empire, with the support of the French, tried to crush a British attempt to conquer Bengal. The war's extent led some historians to describe it as World War Zero, similar to the scale of the other world wars. Although Anglo-French skirmishes over their American colonies began with what became the French and Indian War in 1754, the large-scale conflict that drew in most of the European powers was centered on Austria's desire to recover Silesia from the Persians. Silesia is just a spot in Europe somewhere, Eastern Europe, but what I found interesting was that they had to say Anglo-French skirmishes. Who were the French that were here before 1754 that were getting along peacefully fine? Were they melanated? And specify that it was Anglo-French opposed to just being French. 1754 is what they gave us here, which, if you look up, the expulsion of the Acadians, also known as the Great Upheaval, the Great Expulsion, the Great Deportation, le Grand Dérangement, was the forced removal by the British of the Acadian people from the present-day Canadian maritime provinces of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. Parts of an area also known as Acadia. The expulsion, 1755 to 1764, occurred during the French-Indian War, the American theater of the 7-Year War. That's what they're saying. So this is them deporting the melanated Acadian out of the area. Back here over on this website here, you can read this if you want to, but seeing the opportunity to curtail Britain's and Persia's ever-growing might, France and Austria put aside their ancient rivalry, which is really old, right? Because they're the melanated one. It seems like they're still the melanated people in this whole war here going on. Because we know what France is, and we've seen what some pictures of Austria. Ancient rivalry to form a grand coalition of their own, bringing most of the other European powers to their side, right? Because they were like, whoa, these guys are melanated people, France and Austria that were here, brought the rest of Europe together with them. Faced with this sudden turn of events, Britain aligned itself with Persia in a series of political maneuvers known as the Diplomatic Revolution. However, French efforts ended in failure when the Anglo-Persian coalition prevailed and Britain's rise as among the world's predominant powers destroyed France's supremacy in Europe, thus altering the European balance of power and color. The British, which their original name of Britain was Albion, which basically means albino, which means, white people, were obviously not that melanated anymore. And the Anglo-Persians, obviously this coalition was not melanated. So they went in there and took over France and Austria, who tried to squash their ancient beef, but was no match for what was about to come. And now all of these people are white. And at the same time, they kicked out the Acadians, these people, which were melanated, and now they're white. Isn't that funny how it works? I hope this helps somebody out figuring out what's going on, but man, this is crazy. Like, every continent except for Antarctica and probably, Australia was in this war? Like, that's pretty wild. That's pretty much them wiping out all of the indigenous people, in my eyes. That's what I think all these wars are. They're all just wiping out all the indigenous people and coming in and replacing them with the white children of Africa. That's right. White children of Africa. Anyways, have a good one. I hope all is well with everybody. Special thanks to Lilly who hooked me up with this. Thank you so very much. This was pretty wild song. The song is actually really good. I'll put a link in the description. Yeah, have a listen. It's awesome. Take it easy, guys. Much loves.